Shivank, what do you mean? Peace was never an option. What a way to come into the stream. I'm so confused. But now I have to change my lighting because I'm gonna get. I don't mind it right now. We'll see. Something fell over. It's okay. I was cleaning up my room yesterday and we got really good and it got really nice and I have a new set of a little like boxy thing over here and it was, navigable. But then I started scrapbooking and my room exploded and so now it's gross again. But a lot of things are nicer and more put together. I left my tea on the wall. Shivank, why is peace not an option? I want to know. Give me a second while I go get my tea. She left her tea. It's really good peppermint tea. My dad had the monopoly on making peppermint tea in our household, but I said, no, Mark. I too can make peppermint tea. Hello, come back. Sometimes I have to get close and then, yes, there we go, peppermint. So his recipe, because he bought a massive thing of peppermint tea leaves on accident, like huge. His recipe is 10 cups of water to 3 huge tablespoons of peppermint tea. I say 12 cups of water, 4 huge tablespoons of peppermint tea. So that's your tea, your thoughts of tea today. Thoughts on tea today. I am tired because I've been cooking all day. I'm going to, okay, there we go. And then we're not going to change anything, YouTube. I am making a large meal for my family tonight. I have finished baking French bread. And as soon as I finish up here, I'm going to scurry back downstairs to make ratatouille and spinach souffle, and something which Patricia can pronounce and I think rhymes with patooey, but it definitely doesn't. It's called like clafouille or something. Clafouti? Patootie? Clafouti? We'll see. So that will wake Patricia from the grave somewhere. In the middle of the night in Spain, she just turned over and was like, somewhere, Sophie is mispronouncing a French word. And she would be right. Okay, I am gonna switch this. Better, right? Better. So that's what we're up to today. Let's do a recap of what happened last chapter. How does she ever get... I know. Hey, Dane, please. I can pronounce France. That's a French word, right? Souffle. I did that great. Chardonnay. I'm just killing it today. Other French words. Put them in the chat. Let's test me. Let's test and see. Oh, 2 people dropped off after I started trying to say French words. That's fair. I understand. Okay, so hors d'oeuvres. I got it. Paris or Paris, as the French would say. So yesterday, Mr. Lockwood, after saying this phrase, I was invited to devastate the Moors, which is hilarious. After saying that phrase, he comes to Thrushcross Grange, is like, who he's renting out to someone else. And he's like, hello, can you just make a bed up right quick for me? And the maid is like, I wish you had said something beforehand, but okay. Thank you, Dane. Patricia can go back to sleep. Zoop, zoop. What was I saying? Okay, so he goes, he's like, I'm going to go see what sort of chaos is taking place at Wuthering Heights. And he goes over and like everything seems to be fine. And he's like, where's Mr. Heathcliff? And Nelly's like, Mr. Heathcliff can't come to the phone anymore. Why? Because he's dead. And everyone's like, what? Because Hareton and Kathy are getting along like really well. They're like making out, and Mr. Lockwood's like, I'm 35, but I'm somehow jealous about this. Um, so he basically, Nelly's like, dude, let me tell you what happened here at Wuthering Heights. Mr. Heathcliff essentially just got more and more distant. He and eventually Kathy got tired of being a bitch, essentially, to Hareton, and was like, listen, Hareton, let's be friends. And Hareton was like, you literally call me stupid every day. There is no reason for me to think that you seriously want to be friends with me. But then she like gives him a kiss on the cheek, and he's like, I'll die for you. So they have become friends, and they like read a lot together. And essentially, that's what happened last chapter. Am I wrong? I don't think I'm wrong. Basically, last chapter, we find out that Kathy and Hareton have the hots for each other, and that Heathcliff is on his way out. And that's what happened last chapter. I saw somebody said, oh, Dane, you said Taylor Swift, and reading it from here, I was like, Taylor Swift has joined the chat? Taylor, I loved folklore. But no, Taylor Swift has not joined our Wuthering Heights chat yet. We still have a day. It could happen. So that's where we're at. Okay, let's do it. Okay, we should be able to finish this in time. She'd write a whole song based on us. Her version of Wuthering Heights would outstripe our Kate Bush, my Kate Bush impression. Okay, let's do it. Wuthering Heights, Volume 2, Chapter 19. On the morrow of that Monday, Earnshaw, being still unable to follow his ordinary employments, and therefore remaining about the house, I speedily found it would be impracticable to retain my charges beside me as hitherefore. She got downstairs before me and out into the garden, where she had seen her cousin performing some easy work. And when I went to bid them come to breakfast, I saw she had persuaded him to clear a large space of ground from currant and gooseberry bushes, and they were busy planning together an importation of plants from the Grange. I was terrified at the devastation which had been accomplished in a brief half hour. The black currant trees were the apple of Joseph's eye, and she had just fixed her choice of a flower bed in the midst of them. There, that will be all shown to the master, I exclaimed. The minute it is sorry. The minute it is I can't do it. The minute it is discovered. Whew! And what excuse have you to offer for taking such liberties with the garden? We shall have a fine explosion on the head of it. See if we don't. Mr. Hareton, I wonder you should have no more wit than to go and make that mess at her bidding. I'd forgotten they were Joseph's, answered Earnshaw, rather puzzled, but I'll tell him I did it. We always ate our meals with Mr. Heathcliff. I held the mistress's post in making tea and carvings, so I was indispensable at table. Catherine usually sat by me, but today she stole near to Hareton, and I presently saw she would have no more discretion in her friendship than she had in her hostility. Now, mind you don't talk with... Who's talking this? Now, mind you don't talk with and notice your cousin too much, were my whispered instructions as we entered the room. It will certainly annoy Mr. Heathcliff, and he'll be mad at you both. I'm not going to, she answered. The minute after, she had sidled to him and was sticking primrose in his plate of porridge. He dared not speak to her there. He dared hardly look, and yet she went on teasing till he was twice on the point of being provoked to laugh. And I frowned, and then she glanced towards the master, whose mind was occupied on other subjects than his company, and his countenance evinced as his countenance evinced, and she grew serious for an instant, scrutinizing him with deep gravity. Afterwards she turned and recommenced her nonsense. At last Hareton uttered a smothered laugh. Mr. Heathcliff startled. His eye rapidly surveyed our faces. Catherine met it with her accustomed look of nervousness, and yet defiance, which he abhorred. "It is well you are out of my reach," she exclaimed. "What fiend possesses you to stare back at me continually with those infernal eyes? Down with them, and don't remind me of your existence again. I thought I had cured you of laughing." "It was me," muttered Hareton. "What do you say?" demanded the master. Hareton looked at his plate and did not repeat the confession. Mr. Heathcliff looked at him a bit, and then silently resumed his breakfast and his interrupted musing. We had nearly finished, and the two young people prudently shifted wider asunder, so I anticipated no further disturbance during that sitting, when Joseph appeared at the door, revealing by his quivering lip and furious eyes that the outrage committed on his precious shrubs was detected. He must have seen Cathy and her cousin about the spot before he examined it, for while his jaws worked like those of a cow chewing its cud, and rendered his speech difficult to understand, he began. Here we go. "I must have my wage, and I mustn't go. I had aimed to see where I served for 60 years, and I thought I'd lug my books up into the garret, and all my bits of stuff. Oh boy. And they should have kitchened themselves for the sake of quietness. It were hard to give up my own hearthstone, but I thought I could do that. But no, she's taken my garden from me, and by the heart. Master, I cannot stand it. You must bend to the yoke, and you will. I'm not used to it, and an odd man doesn't soon get used to new bargains. I'd rather earn my bite and my sup with a hammer in the road." Now, idiot," interrupted Heathcliff. "Cut it short. What's your grievance? I'll interfere in no quarrels between you and Nelly. She may thrust you in the coal-hole for anything I care." "It's not Nelly," answered Joseph. "I shouldn't shift for Nelly. Nasty ill now as she is, thank God. She cannot steal the soul of nobody. She were never so handsome, but what a body must look at her but winking. It's yon flaysome, graceless queen that's witched our lad with her bold eye and her forward ways, till, nay, it fair bursts my heart. He's forgotten all I done for him, and made on him, and gone and riven up a whole row of the grandest currant trees in the garden. And here he lamented outright, unmanned by a sense of his bitter injuries, and Earnshaw's ingratitude and dangerous condition. He's back. Oh, thank God. I'm so glad. Because, listen, I am extremely bad at reading these. All right, can you send the link in the chat? That might be useful. Okay. "Is the fool drunk?" asked Mr. Heathcliff. "Hareton, is it you he's finding fault with?" "I've pulled up 2 or 3 bushes," replied the young man, "but I'm going to set 'em again." "And where have you pulled them up?" said the master. Catherine wisely put up her tongue. Incredible. Oh my gosh, Shiv, we said the same thing at the same time. Okay, where was I? We want to plant some flowers there, she cried. I'm the only person to blame, for I wished him to do it. And who the devil gave you leave to touch a stick about the place? Demanded her father-in-law, much surprised. And who ordered you to obey her? He added, turning to Hareton. The latter was speechless. His cousin replied, You shouldn't grudge a few yards of earth for me to ornament when you have taken all my land. Damn straight. Your land, insolent slut? Well, you never had any, said Heathcliff. And my money, she continued, returning his angry glare, and meantime biting a piece of crust, the remnant of her breakfast. Silence, he exclaimed. Get done and be gone. And Hareton's land and his money, pursued the reckless thing. Hareton and I are friends now, and I shall tell him all about you. The master seemed confounded a moment, grew pale, and rose up, eyeing her all the while with an expression of mortal hate. If you strike me, Hareton will strike you, she said, so you may as well sit down. If Hareton does not turn you out of the room, I'll strike him to hell, thundered Heathcliff. Damnable witch! Dare you pretend to rouse him against me? Off with her! Do you hear? Fling her into the kitchen. I'll kill her, Ellen Dean, if you let her come into my sight again. Hareton tried under his breath to persuade her to go. Drag her away, he cried savagely. Are you staying to talk? And he approached to execute his own command. He'll not obey you, wicked man, any more, said Catherine, and he'll soon detest you as much as I do. Wisht, muttered the young man reproachfully. I will not hear you speak so to him. Have done. But you won't let him strike me? She cried. Come then, he whispered earnestly. It was too late. Heathcliff had caught hold of her. Now you go, he said to Earnshaw, accursed witch. This time she has provoked me when I could not bear it, and I'll make her repent it forever. All right, folks. I think it's okay. But buckle in. He had his hand in her hair. Hareton attempted to release the locks, entreating him not to hurt her that once. His black eyes flashed. He seemed ready to tear Catherine in pieces. And I was just worked up to risk coming to the rescue when of a sudden his fingers relaxed. He shifted his grasp from her head to her arm and gazed intently in her face. Then he drew his hand over his eyes, stood a moment to collect himself apparently, and turning anew to Catherine, said with assumed calmness, Is there like an apple copter? Like someone in their like individual putt-putt plane is going by my house right now. What a segue. You must avoid putting me in passions, or I shall really murder you sometime. Go with Mrs. Dean, keep with her, and confine your insolence to her ears. As to Hareton Earnshaw, if I see him listen to you, I'll send him seeking his bread where he can get it. Your love will make him an outcast and a beggar. Nelly, take her and leave me, all of you. Leave me. Thought. Question. Didn't Kathy, like original Kathy's love, make Heathcliff an outcast and a beggar when he just like up and left? I don't know. I led my young lady out. She was too glad of her escape to resist. The other followed, and Mr. Heathcliff had the room to himself till dinner. I'd counseled Catherine to get hers upstairs, but as soon as he perceived her vacant seat, he sent me to call her. What? No. He spoke to none of us, ate very little, and went out directly afterwards, intimating that he should not return before evening. The two friends established themselves in the house during his absence, where I heard Hareton sternly check his cousin on her offering a revelation of her father-in-law's conduct to his father. He said he wouldn't suffer a word to be uttered to him in his disparagement. If he were a devil, it didn't signify. He would stand by him, and he'd rather she would abuse himself, as she used to, than begin on Mr. Heathcliff. Catherine was waxing cross at this, but she found means to make her hold her tongue by asking how she would like him to speak ill of her father. And then she comprehended that Earnshaw took the master's reputation home to himself, and was attached by ties stronger than reason could break. chains forged by habit, which it would be cruel to attempt to loosen. She showed a good heart thenceforth in avoiding both complaints and expressions of antipathy concerning Heathcliff, and confessed to me her sorrow that she had endeavoured to raise a bad spirit between him and Hareton. Indeed, I don't believe she has ever breathed a syllable in the latter's hearing against her oppressor since. When this slight disagreement was over, they were thick again, and as busy as possible in their several occupations of pupil and teacher. I came in to sit with them after I had done my work, and I felt so soothed and comforted to watch them that I did not notice how time got on. You know, they both appeared in a measure my children. I had long been, oh my God! I forgot that Nelly, loved Hareton so much when he was a baby. Oh my God. I'm distraught. I had long been proud of one, and now I was sure the other would be a source of equal satisfaction. His honest, warm, and intelligent nature shook off rapidly the clouds of ignorance and degradation which it had been bred. And Catherine's sincere commendations acted as a spur to his industry. His brightening mind brightened his features, and added spirit and nobility to their aspect. I could hardly fancy it the same individual I had beheld on the day I discovered my little lady at Wuthering Heights, after her expedition to the crags. While I admired and they labored, dusk drew on, and with it returned the master. He came upon us quite unexpectedly, entering by the front way, and had a full view of the whole three ere we could raise our heads to glance at him. Well, I reflected there was never a pleasanter or more harmless sight, and it will be a burning shame to scold them. The red firelight glowed on their two bonny heads and revealed their faces, animated with the eager interest of children. For though he was 23 and she 18, each had so much of novelty to feel and learn that neither experienced nor evinced the sentiments of sober, disenchanted maturity. They lifted their eyes together to encounter Mr. Heathcliff. Perhaps you have never remarked that their eyes are precisely similar because they're cousins. And they are also those of Catherine Earnshaw. The present Catherine has no likeness to her, except a breadth of forehead and a certain arch of the nostril that makes her appear rather haughty whether she will or not. With Hareton the resemblance is carried farther. It is singular at all times. Then it was particularly striking because his senses were alert and his mental faculties wakened to unwonted activity. I suppose this resemblance disarmed Mr. Heathcliff. He walked to the hearth in evident agitation, but it quickly subsided as he looked at the young man, or, I should say, altered its character, for it was there yet. He took the book from his hand and glanced at the open page, then returned it without any observation, merely signing Catherine away. Her companion lingered very little behind her, and I was about to depart also, but he bid me sit still. "It is a poor conclusion, is it not?" he observed, having brooded a while on the scene he had just witnessed. "An absurd termination to my violent exertions. I get levers and mattocks to demolish the two houses, and train myself to be capable of working like Hercules, and when everything is ready and in my power, I find the will to lift a slate off either roof has vanished. My old enemies have not beaten me. Now would be the precise time to revenge myself on their representatives. I could do it, and none could hinder me. But where is the use? I don't care for striking. I can't take the trouble to raise my hand. That sounds as if I had been laboring the whole time only to exhibit a fine trait of magnanimity. Magnanimity. It is far from being the case. I have lost the faculty of enjoying their destruction, and I am too idle to destroy for nothing. Nelly, there is a strange change approaching. I am in its shadow at present. I take so little interest in my daily life that I hardly remember to eat and drink. Those two who have left the room are the only objects which retain a distinct material appearance to me, and that appearance causes me pain amounting to agony. Now, Nelly was also nursemaid to Heathcliff and Catherine, wasn't she? I'll make an observation after I finish this. About her I won't speak, and I don't desire to think, but I earnestly wish she were invisible. Her presence invokes only maddening sensations. He moves me differently, and yet, if I could do it without seeming insane, I'd never see him again. You'll perhaps think me rather inclined to become so, he added, making an effort to smile, if I try to describe the thousand forms of past associations and ideas he awakens or embodies. But you'll not talk of what I tell you, and my mind is so eternally secluded in itself, it is tempting at last to turn it out to another. 5 minutes ago, Hareton seemed a personification of my youth, not a human being. I felt to him in such a variety of ways that it would have been impossible to have accosted him rationally. In the first place, his startling likeness to Catherine connected him fearfully with her. That, however, which you may suppose the most potent to arrest my imagination is actually the least. For what is not connected with her to me, and what does not recall her? I cannot look down to this floor, but her features are shaped on the flags, in every cloud, in every tree, filling the air at night and caught by glimpses in every object. By day I am surrounded with her image, the most ordinary faces of men and women, my own features, mock me with the resemblance. The entire world is a dreadful collection of memoranda that she did exist and that I have lost her. Well, Hareton's aspect was the ghost of my immortal love, of my wild endeavors to hold my right, my degradation, my pride, my happiness, my anguish. But it is frenzy to repeat these thoughts to you, only it will let you know why, with the reluctance to be always alone, his society is no benefit, rather an aggravation of the constant torment I suffer, and it partly contributes to render me regardless how he and his cousin go on together. I can give them no attention any more. What do you mean by a change, Mr. Heathcliff? I said, alarmed at his manner, though he was neither in danger of losing his senses, nor dying according to my judgment. He was strong and healthy, and as to his reason, from childhood, he had a delight in dwelling on dark things and entertaining odd fancies. He might have a monomania on the subject of his departed idol, but on every other point his wits were as sound as mine. I shall not know that till it comes, he said. I'm only half conscious of it now. You have no feelings of illness, have you? I asked. No, Nelly, I have not, he answered. Then you are not afraid of death? I pursued. Good Lord, woman. Afraid? No, he replied. I have neither fear nor presentiment nor a hope of death. Why should I? With my hard constitution and temperate mode of living, and unperilous occupations, I ought to, and probably shall, remain above ground till there is scarcely a black hair on my head. And yet I cannot continue in this condition. I have to remind myself to breathe, almost to remind my heart to beat. And it is like bending back a stiff spring. It is by compulsion that I do the slightest act, not prompted by one thought, and by compulsion that I notice anything alive or dead, which is not associated with one universal idea. I have a single wish, and my whole being and faculties are yearning to attain it. They have yearned towards it so long and so unwaveringly, that I'm convinced it will be reached, and soon, because it has devoured my existence. I am swallowed in the anticipation of its fulfillment. My confessions have not relieved me, but they may account for some otherwise unaccountable phrases of humor, which I show. Oh God, it is a long fight. I wish it were over. He began to pace the room, muttering terrible things to himself, till I was inclined to believe, as he said Joseph did, that conscience had turned his heart to an earthly hell. I wondered greatly how it would end. Though he seldom before had revealed his state of mind, even by looks, it was his habitual mood, I had no doubt. He asserted it himself. But not a soul from his general bearing heard the fact. You did not, when you saw him, Mr. Lockwood. And at the period of which I speak, he was just the same as then, only fonder of continued solitude, and perhaps still more laconic in company. And that is the end of that chapter, and I believe tomorrow is the end. Tomorrow is the end. The observation that I was going to make is that, I mean, two things. One, it's narratively necessary for Nelly to be the one that Heathcliff opens up to, because otherwise we would never know. I think it's just interesting that he clearly has a yearning to open up and to be understood, but his prejudice, I guess, just gets in the way. He's clearly like sensitive and like he doesn't have to be a bad person. I know, right? But Dane, he doesn't have to be a bad person. Like these, and I guess that's what I don't know. Like, there's no excuse for him being as awful as he is, and especially the fact that, like, clearly he's someone who is sensitive and yearns for love and connection, but is just so caught up in his anger that he cannot ever achieve happiness. I was gonna say like he needs to listen to some Lizzo, but I don't know if that'll help him. But that's my thought, because he always has like the most tortured, like exquisitely tortured passages. I'm actually gonna go pop a bottle, as they say. I don't think that's how they say it. Maybe it's about champagne. I'm just gonna go drink a cider while I cook, which could get dangerous. But he always has these beautiful tortured phrases that he only tells to Nelly. It's just like, you had the capacity to be an okay person, but you just chose to be this like tyrant, and like this, you chose to cut off all these people that like clearly, like obviously all of the characters in the books like have capacities to be genial and kind, but they all, because of either circumstance or the way that they choose to interact with the world, they all reject this opportunity of goodness. Except for Isabella. Isabella was like a little bit spoiled, but she was ultimately like the kindest, who saw the kindest parts of people and was used most cruelly because of that. That's what I have to say about Wuthering Heights today. I'll chug, chug, chug for you, Shiv. Can't take shots. I'm very bad at it. It's a two-sip ordeal when you want when I'm taking a shot. It's not a one and done, ladies and gents, and non-binary royalty. Okay, that's all for today. I'm gonna go make some ratatouille, and I will see you tomorrow at 3 for our last reading. How strange! For a while. I'll come back in September for Northanger Abbey. But I don't know, maybe Northanger will be our, we'll see how my course schedule is looking out. I'm gonna miss this. I'm gonna be out in the boondocks interacting with nobody. That's gonna be interesting for a month. And then I'm gonna be working, which is exciting. And then I'll be back. But yeah, we'll see how my school schedule works out, if they let me shoot a thesis or not, because that'll really affect what I'm able to do. But hopefully we'll be back at some point in the future. So, with much love, I'm going to sign off for today. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day. I hope that you all get to eat some tasty things this evening. These times have been so fun. I'm going to miss you guys. Gals and non-binary pals. Yeah. So, I'll see you tomorrow. It's not the end yet. It's almost the end. But not yet. Okay. All right. See you all soon. Bye-bye. Goodbye.